For all that is our life. Good morning. Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Greater Naples. It is great to have you with us on this Sunday before Thanksgiving. It's great to have you present in this community. Welcome to anyone who's new. Welcome to all of you who have been with us since the beginning of the pandemic. I'd like to be grateful as well for those in the sanctuary this morning, Daniel Goodset in the AV room and John Forsyth back there keeping watch over his flocks. Stu Shelton at the piano, and this morning Larry McCarthy is our worship associate, and he'll take the ball from here.
Good morning. I'm happy to be with you again for today's service. UUCGN is a welcoming congregation. We freely seek intellectual and spiritual growth and strive to create a larger community of peace, justice, and love. And in these difficult times, with a spirit of love and acceptance, we are reaching out with our hearts to offer mutual support. Whether you're with us live or watching the recorded version, everyone is welcome. We are pleased that you have chosen to spend your time with us this morning. If you have joined our community online since the beginning of the pandemic, I want to extend a special welcome. If you let us know you're here and who you are, we can include you in our email blasts about all the happenings at UUCGN. Please email our administrator at office@uunaples.org. If you are watching live, you can use the chat button to connect with others watching now. And don't forget that you can connect with each other at any time on our virtual coffee hour on Facebook. Even in this time of separation, each of us is encouraged to grow spiritually in fellowship with others by joining in worship and online activities that offer education, reflection, and discussion. Details and links on these opportunities are found in our weekly and monthly emails, but there are a few things I want to highlight this morning. Tomorrow's Mindful Monday Forum will be presented by Bill Corson, president of the Greater Naples chapter of Americans United for the Separation of Church and State. His topic is the power worshipers inside the dangerous rise of religious nationalism. You can join the forum online at 7 o'clock, but registration is required. Please see the notice in the weekend news. There will not be a Wonderful Wednesdays program or a Q&A with the minister this week due to the holiday. The Holiday Giving Tree Project has already exceeded the halfway point towards this year's goal of $7,000. The funds collected will provide needed assistance to identified families at Avalon and Shadowlawn Elementary Schools in Naples and at the Immokalee Middle School. Please don't forget to sign the Blue Zone Pledge and help us become a Blue Zones congregation. See the weekly and Sunday emails for more information. While we are still unable to gather together in this place, Jim Scott reminds us in his hymn that we can gather the spirit of heart and mind. Let us do so now as we begin our service with the Prelude.
Each day provides us with an opportunity to love again, to hurt again, to embrace joy, to experience unease, to discover the tragic. Each day provides us an opportunity to live. This day is no different. This hour no more unique than the last, except maybe today, maybe now, among friends and fellow journeyers, maybe for the first time, maybe silently, maybe even from a distance, we can share ourselves. Let's join together in the chalice lighting response. The words will be on your screen. May this flame stir our hearts and remind us of our mission, to be truly welcoming, to grow in mind and spirit, and to widen the circle of peace, justice, and love. And let's join in singing our opening hymn, For All That Is Our Life. Words will be on your screen. For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad. For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For each we learn, for our work and pleasures, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for sorrow we must bear, for failures, pain, and loss, for each new thing we learn, for fearful hours that pass, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad. I hope that some of you remembered the words and were just steaming along while I was fumbling a little bit. Good morning again, and welcome to this Sunday, which is usually a family Thanksgiving service, the Sunday before the holiday. This year, however, our youth are going to be joining us in person safely for a service project on the pavilion. Packing bags for our weekend meals program. So they're not with us this morning, but you are, and we're grateful for that. I titled this section, or I've sort of come to call this section, A Beginning, and this week, In the Beginning, because we're talking a little bit about creation myths, sort of at least indirectly. There are so many creation myths. We have two in the book of Genesis in our Judeo-Christian heritage. But I have a book back in my office that has dozens of creation myths that spoke to the indigenous people of this land long before white Europeans ever arrived. Wonderful stories about first boy and first girl, or how the earth gave up itself into life. Always, though, like that. Life coming from earth. They're wonderful stories, they're fun. There's always a sense of tragic and the need for grief and death for things to continue to flourish. Wonderful creation myths. Our nation has its own creation myths as well, one of which we celebrate or mourn this week, depending on your perspective. The first Thanksgiving was a celebration of survival, which would not have happened if it had not been for a relationship between the arriving pilgrims and the existent Native Americans. The pilgrims probably would not have survived if it had not been for the willingness and, in some cases, the need for the American natives to learn and grow with them. There was a balance of power at play here in this land even before the Europeans arrived. And so that first Thanksgiving was, in fact, a little bit of a give and take. It was ripe with possibility, but that possibility was never to come to fruition as more and more European settlers arrived with greater and greater demands for land, pushing and pushing ever further into this land we now call the United States. So it wasn't so much that the first Thanksgiving was a problem, but there was, and there always is, as every point along history's timeline, a lost opportunity. The history of our land is not the history of the whitewashed textbooks. It's still there to find. You could read the wonderful Indigenous Peoples' History of the United States by Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz and discover truly the story from the point of view of the indigenous people who lived here before. It is a story of white settler colonialism, which is the removal of and erasure of indigenous peoples in order to take their land for use in perpetuity by those settlers. And this means that settler colonialism is not a vicious thing from the past, but as long as we are here present, it is a continuous thing. The systems of power, oppression, and governance that we sometimes enjoy are built upon the back of that striving, that grab for land, that hunger for something we know not what. The truth is there to be learned. The stories of indigenous people of this land are not just their stories. They are our stories. Our stories are not separate, but deeply entwined. Our job is to accept those histories as our own and not turn our heads from the ugliness and pains of the past, but to reflect on, to grow from, and to act on their possibilities today. It takes a bit of moral imagination, a willingness to want to change, and there's a big step. Our reading this morning will take you a little further into the story.
Panthea Burns is a senior associate in public service at the University of Southern Maine. Since 1999, she has worked in Maine promoting best child welfare practices among Native children, youth, and families. In 2016, she wrote a poem for an interfaith service which focused on a new understanding of Thanksgiving. Its title is Reparations. I rose before the dawn this morning. I sat alone and turned on no lamp, comforted by the dark. I sought to understand myself and all of history. I know what we've done. I acknowledge the taking, your land, your ancestors' lives, your children, your language and prayers. I acknowledge the lies, doctrines and destinies, old westerns, my history books, executive decrees, unsigned court orders, and I don't even know how many treaties we broke. I acknowledge the silence, invisibility, denial, my privilege, which allows me to hide from harm, to protect my interests while you are exposed to risk. We have never recognized nor measured our debt. So we awaken now to do that accounting. I acknowledge that hope depends on our people finding our shared humanity, standing for what is good in our world and in ourselves. Hope depends on our people repairing the takings with generosity and justice, making amends for the lives, with a truthful look at history, at ourselves, restoring those terrorized with healing and compassion, by listening and bearing witness and speaking out. Hope depends on knowing that we do not own, that we have no authority from God except a mandate to love one another, to love this land that we call home, to live in peace together. I know what we've done. I've heard your stories, witnessed your tears, been amazed by your resilience that you are still here. While our collective acts are written on my heart, our crimes need not define us. For I know too what is possible when we choose justice and compassion, when we choose to acknowledge and repair. This is the time, this is the hour.
Our centering hymn this morning is from Jane Marshall. What gift can we bring? What gift can we bring? What present, what token, what words can convey it? The joy of this day, when grateful we come, remembering, rejoicing, what song can we offer in honor and praise? Give thanks for the past, for those who had vision, for those who planted so dreams could come true. For now, for study, for worship, for mission that bids us change words into deeds. What gift can we bring? What present, what token, what words can convey it? The joy of this day, when grateful we come, remembering, rejoicing, this song that we offer in honor and praise. We enter into this space of joys and sorrows every week, despite the fact that none of you are here in the sanctuary to share most directly those things that bubble up within our lives all the time. This morning, our hearts go out to Jim and Joanne Husky, who shared the news that Jim's mother, Helen Morris, passed away this Wednesday at the age of 98. She lived in Dothan, Alabama, and left her 2 sons, her 4 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren, who will, I'm sure, remember her fondly. Today, following Friday's day of transgender remembrance, we reach out to our transgender and gender non-conforming family members in recognition of this week's Transgender Day of Remembrance, and to hold up in our shared resilience those who have been lost to fatal violence this past year. We want you to know that we are there for you and committed to the work of full acceptance and ending violence. If you have a joy or a sorrow that you would like to share or have shared on Sunday morning, I urge you to send me an email before Saturday of the day before. And if not, if you have something you would still like to share, our Caring Corner will go out Monday or Tuesday, sharing the news of our community with everyone. So I urge you to do that for even the smallest things that you feel important, you would love to share. We celebrate this time of year, Thanksgiving, because it is a family holiday. And while it is also a day of mourning for the indigenous people of this land, we recognize that even in that there is a sense of family and togetherness. We celebrate a Thanksgiving because gratitude is essential in human life, as well as grief is essential to human life, and essential also for the healing of our history of violence. It's hard, I know, to be thankful and sorrowful at the same time, but this is life. And life never presents us with one thing or the other, but always a mix of everything. Joys and sorrows come together. We acknowledge that in our own lives and in the life of this nation. I hope you'll join me centering yourself now in the spirit of meditation with these words by Martha Valentin. In gatherings, we are stirred like the leaves of the fall season, rustling around the sacred trees, tossed hither and yon, until we come to rest together, quietly, softly. We come to gather strength from one another. We come to give strength to one another. We come to ask for strength from the Spirit of all that is and is not. When our hearts sing or when they frown, it is the way of compassion telling us to give. It is the way of peace telling us to share our gifts. For we are happiest and most powerful when love is made apparent in and through us. Spirit of love, as we twirl in this circle dance that is life, we give thanks for reminding us each day of our task of ministering each to the other with a searching glance, a safe touch, a generous smile, a thoughtful word. Thank you for reminding us that we are always building our beloved comunidad. Thank you for reminding us that through our covenant with you, we covenant with each other and are made whole. In gratitude, we celebrate with open hearts and minds. We discover who we are, separate from each other and within one another. In this circle that holds all life, may we work ever towards widening its boundaries until there are none. Let's share a few minutes of silence.
Who is Freedom For is a reflection that was written by Reverend David Schwartz, who serves at the First Unitarian Church of Chicago. We gather at Thanksgiving, in some sense, to retell the creation myth of our country. In this myth is our very best and our very worst. A boldness, a care for the common good, a wish to say we before I. Yet, even before the first Thanksgiving feast, it's a story of theft and violence and a ruthlessly narrow definition of who we really means. The colonists had come seeking freedom, and in that we identify with them. But it was freedom only for themselves. In every generation forward, from that day to this, the people living in this land that became America struggle always with the question, who is freedom for? Black persons were taken from their native Africa to become slaves. Immigration laws were written explicitly to prohibit non-Western Europeans. Women could not vote a century ago. In many states right now, gays and lesbians can legally be fired or evicted merely for not being straight. Refugees knock, and in response, voices call to bar the door. The Unitarian Universalist minister Clarence Skinner wrote a century ago, "The fight for freedom is never won. Each generation must win for itself the right to emancipate itself from its own tyrannies. Therefore, those who have been reared in freedom bear a tremendous responsibility to the world to win an even larger and more important liberty. So may it be for us. We are the inheritors of our liberty, won with sweat and labor and blood of the generations before us. May we be a people committed to winning an even larger liberty for the generations that follow. Who is freedom for? May we answer, today and always, every one of us."
Our offering this week is for this congregation and the work that it does. I like to think that the offering that we give every week during our service is a gift to each other, an opportunity to express gratitude for each other's presence, each other's commitment to this congregation, to each other's humanity, to a sense of community and being a part of the larger whole. It all ties together. Our gratitude and our generosity alike. This morning's offertory was a creation, a sort of a mutual creation between our wonderful musical coordinator, Stu Shelton, and myself, in trying to create something that would bring joy and thoughtfulness at the same time. So this morning's offering for the ongoing mission of this congregation will be gratefully received. And let's enjoy the offertory.
Love and delight.
for our children and our children's children, for our neighbors' children and their children's children. Our lives are bound up. We are not our own. We are not separate from one another. What it takes to be a human being is to recognize the humanity of others, to listen to their stories, to reflect on what their stories mean, to be willing to let their stories change our own, and to act in new ways towards an ever more expansive sense of we. Children, at least the children I know, tend to love the holiday season. Christmas, sure. But Thanksgiving as well. It's a holiday that I think from just sort of sheer, shared joy in family, children tend to appreciate. There are always exceptions, and there are always families who don't make Thanksgiving a particularly joyous experience, I recognize. But it's a family holiday, a family of gratitude, a holiday of gratitude, and I think children pick up a sense of the underlying joy of that. I know I did. For me, even though I was a shy child and introverted, I still enjoyed sitting and watching my family at the holidays, especially at Thanksgiving, the interactions, the rich smells of food, a sense of a day that's different from another, a day of quiet, day of peace. Thanksgiving in the United States is a family holiday, but it is also tied to the Thanksgiving creation myth. And that sense of, isn't this a wonderful event, a fairy tale kind of thing where people got together and shared a meal. And as I said, though there was opportunity in the moment, that opportunity departed fairly quickly with the continued onset of European settlers coming to this country and the narrative of settler colonialism. It is for us to learn these things, to know the history as well as we can, and not to sort of sit in guilt, but to understand that the actions of our forebears is not our responsibility. That was their world. Our responsibility lies in this world and what we choose to do with it. I have a thought of a new Thanksgiving. A Thanksgiving that may be celebrated years hence, looking back on this time of grief, this time of struggle, this time of anxiety, this time of death. And seeing that what came out of the struggle was something new, something worth being thankful for, a new gratitude for people more fully coming together. We need a new narrative to get us there. The old narratives are not working anymore. Local minister, or a local resident, I should say, Brian McLaren and Gareth Higgins have written a book called The Seventh Story, Us, Them, and the End of Violence. And in that book, they talk about 6 narratives that have been the driving force in history. There is the narrative of domination, patriarchal domination, sort of the dominant narrative, so to speak, in the history of the world. There's the story of revolution, time and time again, of people surging up to question and to confront that dominant culture. Anywhere that it popped up in the world, this story of revolution was an important one and continues to be. We honor those revolutionary spirits. Another story within the dominant culture is the story of isolation, that sense of my group, right or wrong. I'm okay as long as I stick to that story. The isolation story. There is, unfortunately, the purification story, which was experienced here in this land. The powerful group sees all of their struggles, all of their problems as the result of the minorities that exist within it. And their job, they believe, is to purify, to eliminate, to eradicate not only the people but their stories, so as not to be a problem. There's the accumulation story. Again, within the dominant culture, those who say, if I could just accumulate everything I possibly could, then I'll be fine. I'll be okay. It's a powerful story. And there's also the victimization story. Those who find their identity in being victims of the dominant culture. And goodness knows there are victims of the dominant culture. But to settle into that and find your identity in victimhood is not as expansive as we need. And certainly the dominant culture is not as expansive as it needs to be. Finally, McLaren and Higgins talk of a 7th story. The story does not have human beings as its protagonists. Rather, it is the story of love. We are not dominant. We are not our domain, but we are partners. We are part of, in our own Unitarian Universalist language, we are part of an interdependent web. And love is the binding force. Partners in the evolution and ongoing creation of goodness. The 7th story that McLaren and Higgins write about invite us to be participants in a great play about the evolution of the story of love, asking us to reach out into friendship and not to rear back as enemies, no matter what anybody else is doing, never accepting that it's us versus them, but stepping into the possibilities of love as a new story. This is wonderful, you say, but how does that happen? And no, it doesn't happen on a national scale in the blink of an eye or the election of a new president. It happens within each one of us every day. Each day is a new opportunity to love. We need to pay attention. We need to pay attention to how we are in the world and what we do in the world so that we understand how our actions affect others. To nurture our own personal well-being and that of our community so that we can thrive and have the courage and the resilience and the strength to move forward together and build the wider circle of peace, justice, and love. We should not pay attention to the stories of separation that are all about us. Watching the news every day only drives us further and further apart. We need the news, but we don't need the constant commentary that goes with it. We don't need the stories of selfishness and scapegoating holding our attention, or we don't need to focus on the wealth of money, rather the wealth of community. We need to seek mentors for ourselves and our communities to help us find our sense of calling and where we belong in this world of love. We need to find our place where our abilities and passions meet the needs of the world. We need to tell the truth. Truth, such an important thing in the glue of a nation, a community, a family. We need to rediscover the source of truth, our commitment to it. A long and hard battle in these days. We need to enlarge our frame of truth, embracing other truths that are out there in the world, hearing other stories that tell of their truths. We need to deepen into the spiritual practices. We need to take the time to be one within ourselves so that we can be one in the world. And we need to continue to join wider and wider circles of compassion and love. A commitment to the seventh story, that we are a part of something bigger. And that bigness, if you will, is love. We are not the center of this story. We are not our own, but of the earth and of other beings and creatures. We are not alone individuals, but part of a greater whole. The commentators will talk about the great divisions and how we seem sort of destined to continue this way. But our past and our present need not define our future. For we too know what is possible when we choose justice and compassion, when we choose to acknowledge and repair and stand in solidarity with others who need us and whom we need. We who are living are not responsible for what our ancestors did. We are responsible, all of us, for the society in which we live and its future. I imagine generations to come looking back at a new beginning born out of upheaval and loss, a realization that we need one another. As Panthea Burns wrote, as Marta Valentin wrote, we are happiest and most powerful when love is made apparent in and through each one of us. So for all that is our life, we give our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift to build the common good and make our own days glad. Our closing hymn is We Are Not Our Own. The words are by Brian Wren. And this is the beginning of hopefully some new experiments in using technology to bring our choir back together. This was an initial attempt to do some work with Stu in studio, and hopefully this will bear fruit down the road with an ability to bring our choir together virtually. But I hope you enjoy this, and I hope maybe we'll be able to use this hymn as we go through the year, singing together these words, "We are not our own."
We are not our own, earth forms us, human leaves on nature's growing vine, fruit of many generations, seeds of life divine. We are not our own, earth names us, past and present, people near and far, family and friends and strangers show us who we are. And if love's encounters lead us on a way uncertain and unknown, connections we have made uplift us, we are not alone. Therefore let us make thanksgiving, and with justice willing and aware, give to earth and all things living liturgies of care. So let us be a house of welcome, living stone, a holy living stone, gladly showing all our neighbors we are not our own.
So let us make a new thanksgiving, and with justice willing and aware, give to earth and all its children liturgies of care. And let us take our place among them, humbled by the welcome that we find, living out a new creation, peace and love for all of humankind. Go in peace, go in love. Have a wonderful holiday, a mindful holiday, and we'll see you on the other side.
So let us be a house of welcome, living stone, a holy living stone, gladly showing all our